Never hold a thought that weakens you. When you catch yourself thinking, diminishing yourself, diminishing your power, diminishing your abilities, your intelligence, your competencies, anything, you switch it and you hold only thoughts that strengthen you. Like, oh, I'm running out of time. That's a weakening thought. So think about, with the time I have remaining, this is what I'm going to accomplish. Boom, boom, boom. That's an empowering thought. Never hold a thought that weakens you. Hold only thoughts that strengthen you.
Welcome to Burning the Ships podcast, and I'm your host, Jason Seward. And today, I've had about 200 interviews on this show, and I've had a lot of high-level folks doing, CEOs of big companies. I've had some athletes. I've had some, really famous people on here. I don't know that I've been more excited about a guest than I am today. I've got Mr. Chuck, and Chuck, I'm going to tell you why here in a second, but I've got Chuck Glover here with me today. He's a local in our area. I'm in the Hampton Roads market, but Chuck's up in the Richmond, Central Virginia market, and he's become, over the last several years, kind of a legend in the networking groups around the Richmond area. And you'll quickly understand what I mean by that. But Chuck, I've gotten to know you through some of those networking events. You're also a private lender. We're going to get into a lot of that information as well. You have a unique approach and strategy that you use with the wrap lending, and I'm excited myself to learn more about it, but to share that with our audience. But your story is what I'm most excited to hear about. When I think of your story, and that's a story of realizing that you're never out of time, right? You're never out of time. And you're someone that, from what I understand, you're going to elaborate on this as we get into it, but you spent a lot of years in the corporate world, just doing the cookie cutter process of a career, right? And it was later in life that you found something very powerful to you, and that was the real estate world, and we'll get into all that. But it makes me think of stories you hear like Colonel Sanders. He founded KFC in his 60s, right? A lot of people don't know that. Sam Walton didn't start Walmart until he was in his mid-50s, I think. And you didn't really find your true calling until you were, 70 years old, Chuck? Or around 70?
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful, and I cannot wait to dig into that. But before we get into all that, I'm going to turn it over to JJ for JJ's Joke of the Week. Take it away, buddy.
Why did the computer go to art class? Because it wanted to learn how to draw its mouse.
All right, JJ. Chuck, I know you appreciate that. You've got grandkids, and you have raised.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love
and
it.
So he always gets excited to play a part in this podcast. But all of this said, man, I'm really, I told you offline before we started recorded, I never go into these interviews with prepared, questions or anything like that. I just kind of let it flow. But I do have a lot of things I want to learn about you, and I think they'll unfold as you kind of tell your story, and we'll take it from there. But with that, Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you and let the legend do what he does. So take it away.
I feel a great pressing need to modify expectations here. I don't know about all this legend stuff and all. I'll tell you what my granddaughter told me. If I've told you once, I've told you a million times. Stop exaggerating.
Well, I don't think anybody that knows you that is listening to this knows that I've undersold it in a lot of ways. So, but again, let's hear it from your perspective, and we'll take it from there. So,
well, I appreciate it. You've had on so many people on your podcast, so many distinguished people and great interviews with tons and tons of information, experience, expertise, and now you have me, and I look at myself as being a 5-time loser. So okay. Now you have a loser on your podcast. Now I'll get into that. I'll talk more about that because I guess it's the kind of thing you've heard people say it before. Well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. You've heard that a lot. And I have to say, if it's probably never more true than my feelings and my thoughts, because I'm just kind of a regular guy, a little bit of background, not so much corporate world, but actually I'm a product of government employment.
Okay.
I was a school teacher for about 13 years and a school administrator for 14 years. And all that time through school, I wanted to have my own business. Now, let me preface that thought with this. I know nothing about business. I'm a school teacher. My degree is in education. My family, I come from a blue collar family. My dad was an electrician and mom was a housekeeper. No business experience. No one in my family that I was ever close to or knew well had a business. So none of that type of experience, let alone real estate investing. But I knew just from being alive and being out there in the world that if you're self-employed, then the sky's the limit. Then you're on easy street. I'm speaking tongue in cheek here.
Oh, yeah.
That's the perception, So I did want to have my own business. So over the decades, it wasn't anything that happened all at once, but over the decades, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, during my 27 years in education, got into 3 or 4 different businesses. The businesses were solid businesses. I didn't make anything in them. I didn't lose anything, but I never made anything. None of them were home runs. In fact, I didn't even hit a single. They just kind of existed, and I would do this for a year or two, and then it'd kind of fizzle. Later on down the road, a few years, I'd do another thing, and it kind of fizzled. And now I'm going to take that back. It didn't fizzle. I fizzled. The businesses are good, regular, solid businesses. Nothing wrong with them. It's just that I didn't have that mindset. But one thing I did learn along the way, early on, with a couple of business partners and stuff that I had a great blessing to be involved with, even though it didn't work out much, was read books, read. So I began a constant diet of books, mindset type of books. And you've heard the authors, they go back, I'm talking 50 years ago now, that I started reading these books. Og Mandino and Zig Ziglar and Norman Vincent Peale. And the list goes on and on. The Magic of Thinking Big and Think and Grow Rich and the Napoleon Hill. Etc. Earl Nightingale, all the old classics, The Richest Man in Babylon, etc. And I read those books, plus there are bunches of other books I read. And I was reading, developing this. One thing about hearing something and taking in something, it's interesting how a message can travel all the way around the world in a couple of seconds. And sometimes it takes years for it to go this last quarter of an inch. Well, that was me. The messages were coming, and I was a positive guy, and I had a great outlook on life, and I was doing absolutely nothing with it. But anyway, so I guess seeds were being planted, is what I'm saying. So I tried a couple more businesses. I really didn't do anything with them. So it gets a little discouraging over time. It's like, well, there are opportunities out here, but are they really for me? You start making excuses. Are they really for me? Is it something so-and-so? But now going back to the career path. So 27 years in education, tried a few businesses. I didn't make much of them, but I did want to have my own business. So I just retired early and started a consulting business. I'm going to be a consultant. And it's based on some things, there's some successes I had with my team and team building and stuff while I was in education. And so I was going to do it for companies. I was going to be a consultant and build high performance teams. It just so happens this was about 20 years ago. And right about that time, it seemed like all of a sudden there were a whole bunch of high performance team development consultants out there. All of a sudden, everybody was getting into team development consultants and human resources and relationships. And so I learned pretty quickly that another term for consultant is unemployed. So, I did some things with it, and it paid the bills. So I made a living with it, but again, it wasn't that home run. But it did okay for a number of years. Once I left education, the thing about people who go into consulting businesses, sometimes they're, let's say, for example, a lawyer. They're with a consultant, they're with a legal firm, and they want to go out and hang out their own shingles. So they might have some clients that'll come over with them. An engineer might have some clients that'll come over with them. Well, an old school teacher doesn't have too many third graders that want to come over with. Right? Come over. So I didn't have all that luxury, I guess. But I put together some things and cobbled together some things. And this is the corporate world part. That I was with Capital One. I did some work with Capital One, with what was then SunTrust Bank and some others. So I did come into the corporate world. Great experiences, by the way. But being a consultant, they were temporary. A year here, 2 years there, 6 months here, etc. But it cobbled together and it did okay. And then when your anchor client pulls out, when your big client pulls out, all of a sudden your income drops significantly. And that's kind of what happened about 7-ish, 8-ish years ago, something like that. And things kind of started getting tough because we never had we had poor financial habits. So I found myself, and there's a whole long story there, credit card debt and some other things, plus the income was diminishing. It was just a time when things were coming together in not such a good way. So the pressures of bill collectors and letters in the mail, second notices, third notices, the phone, you don't want to answer the phone anymore because it's going to be a collector calling about, okay, you owe us this, that, and the other. And so over a period of a year or so, we had been living up to our means. We weren't putting away money for savings. We'd made some poor financial decisions. So I found myself at about age 68, 69. I'm 77 now, so this was just a few years ago. Here I was, 69 years old, 70 years old, chronologically, with the financial status of a 20-year-old. Now think about a 20-year-old's finances. How much of a savings do they have? Just out of college or maybe finishing college, nothing. I mean, it's the well is dry. What about their 401k or their IRA plans? Nothing. No retirement things. They're just starting out. They have payments. They're probably buying a car, or maybe, renting an apartment, maybe buying a house, probably renting. But the cash is going out with just kind of make ends meet. Well, I was 70 years old in that situation. The pressures got kind of tough. And my wife decided the pressure was too much. So she thought it was time she went another direction. And, at the time, of course, it was, what can you say? Anybody that's been through divorce has an idea of what that's like. But looking back on it, in hindsight, I think she had a reason, because I had gotten into some things, as I mentioned already, didn't work out so well because I really didn't work at it. I can't say that I really gave her a lot of reason to believe in me. I don't know that I really believed in myself that much anymore. The dreams and goals you had over a long time ago start to sort of fade. They start to get tarnished a little bit. And it's like, well, it was a thought. At least I gave it a shot back in the day. And you just start falling back into that routine, that excuse routine that I had developed years ago. So that's kind of where I was a few years back.
Chuck, can I pause you for a second?
Oh, absolutely.
And ask a few questions before we get. So I'm gonna ask a couple personal questions if you don't mind. But I've always known you as this, like, you wake up, first thing you said when we connected offline, or like, got hopped on this call, was you're having a fantastic day because you chose to, right? So that is the Chuck that I've gotten to know, that, like, it's like, does this guy ever have a bad moment, a weak moment, or anything like that? I know the answer is yes, but um, I can't imagine that personality is something that just happened overnight or with your recent success. So I would imagine, you alluded to it earlier, as you were a school teacher and went into administration, you had that mentality. You were very positive, probably very inspiring to folks around you. When you were going through all of these attempts in business and trying to make this happen, and resetting back to zero, and having the realization that all these decades have passed you by, and you've got the financial standing of a 20-year-old, as you just said, and your marriage sounds like it was on the rocks, and ended up ultimately in divorce. Did you ever deal with any bouts of depression? Or, and if that's too personal to ask, I apologize, but a situation where you look back and say, all this BS positivity I've been portraying for years has led me to nothing. And what, if you felt that, what did you do with those emotions? I know that's a tough question.
Well, no, it actually, it's relief. It's a relief to talk about it, to share with other people, because I won't say that it was ever just extreme hopelessness, but it was kind of heading in that direction. I one incident in particular, the marriage was going through a really tough time, so I knew that it wasn't, that it was pretty much out. I'd talked about, counseling and stuff, and that wasn't received well, and so that was pretty much it. I had done what I knew to do, and I went to church one morning by myself. At this point in time, we were churchgoers and all, but at this point in time, I was kind of on, even though we're in the same house I was on, went to church. I went to the, church early, Bible class, the sermon, and then you hang around and talk. So maybe 3 hours or so later, then I come home. And when I came in the door, the living room was empty. The furniture was gone. And I went through the house, and some other pieces of furniture were gone, and there was much of it was gone. I went upstairs, and the bed was gone. I realized what had happened, that my wife had, while I was away at church, she had already arranged for some people to come by and help her with the truck and all, and just move stuff out. I sat on the floor in what would have been the couch in the living room. There was a blanket left. I sat on that blanket and left there, and just stunned disbelief, knowing it was coming. But when it really came, your world kind of just collapses. And I sat there for maybe an hour or two, just sitting there. Just one example. But anyway, over the period of a few months, the depression was difficult. When I would get out of bed in the morning, and by the way, at that time, COVID hit, so there was no work. I was at home. That was it. I was at home, and it was a challenge to turn the front doorknob and go out and just walk down the street and back. Some days I would kind of force myself to eat a half a peanut butter sandwich, because you have to do these things. You have to eat. You have to be active, and just staying in the house is one of the worst things you could do. And I think that's where the seeds and the mindset came in, that while it wasn't a beautiful time of life and it was difficult to smile, you still knew that there has to be an element of strength, that you have to carry on. But leading up to the real estate thing, with no business experience much or anything going on, that's kind of where I was. And my son, Stephen Glover, who's just crushing it in in real estate investment, he's just absolutely crushing it. He said, "Dad, I got a book you might want to read." And I said, "Okay," because when your children say, You want to do this, you want to do that, your answer is going to be yes. You know, you're a parent. If your child says, can we play a thing or so, you absolutely, no matter what you're doing, absolutely we can. So I took the book and read it, and it happened to be Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. So I read the book, and about half to two-thirds of the way through it, I did this thing like, where was this book like 30 years ago? And I thought, because the book, it talks about real estate investing, but it isn't selling real estate investing. It's just explaining how money works. And I had been to the E quadrant, the employee. Then I'd been to the S quadrant, self-employed, and I learned that to go from an employee to an employee or to a business owner, you traded in a 40-hour-a-week job for a 90-hour-a-week job, plus all the headaches and hassles that go with it. But I read that book, and it was fantastic. Now, 2 weeks after I read that book, I saw online there was a free real estate seminar here in Richmond. It was at the Sheraton Hotel. It was a Rich Dad, Poor Dad seminar. And I had just read this book by Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought, I'm going to, it was free. Now you know what it was. I didn't realize at the time. It was an upsell to get you to buy this $20,000 class or whatever it was. But the 2-hour session was free. So I showed up. Now, I was disappointed that Robert Kiyosaki wasn't there. Yes, I actually went thinking Robert Kiyosaki was going to be in Richmond. By this time, he's probably a billionaire living in, Monte Carlo or something. But there was a guy there. I think it was a real estate investor. He knew what he was talking about. He did a good job. But 2-hour seminar, and of course, then the upsell. For $700 you can get this, and for $12,000 you can. Well, I wasn't going to go there, but one thing I got out of that meeting was attend real estate meetings. Real estate investors get together, attend these meetings. So I got that out of that. So I left and I Googled, real estate meetings in the area. I found one. I went to it. The first meeting there, so I thought, this is something I'm going to really give a shot doing. I attended 2 or 3 or 4. And I learned about wholesaling, I learned about flipping, and I learned about being a landlord. You kind of know about these things, but I didn't know about wholesaling. Well, that's how you start off, right? You start off wholesaling, then you start flipping, and then you become a landlord. That's the way it's done.
Right.
Hey, look, I'm 70 years old. I don't want to run around chasing contractors and hammering and nailing and unplugging toilets and stuff. I went to a meetup, and the guy leading it, there were about 60 or 70 investors in the room, good sized group. And he says, well, welcome to the meeting. Happy to have y'all here. Let's see who's in the room tonight. How many wholesalers do we have in the room? Bunch of hands go up. How many flippers we have in the room? But hands. What about landlords? How many landlords? All hands. Okay, what about money lenders? One hand goes up. Not mine now. I wasn't anything. I didn't know much of anything. Fred and Marie Krause were in the meeting that night. And of course, after the meeting was over, everybody makes a beeline to Fred and Marie. And I'm thinking, wow, I think I see a need here that maybe I can fill. So after the crowd diminished a little bit, I went over to Fred and got his card. And a couple of days later, I gave him a call and said, I'm going to take you and Marie out to lunch. Tell me about this lending thing. How does all this work? Because I thought maybe I could be a money lender. Now there was one little problem with this. I didn't have any money. I had a little bit of money, a few $1,000. I actually, before I really learned anything about real estate, I thought, here I was kind of in a desperate situation. And what do? You turn to the stock market. So I turned to the stock market and I thought, based on my experience, that's the book I ought to write. It ought to be a book entitled How I Leveraged the Stock Market to Turn $8,000 into $5,000.
I love it.
But anyway, not much luck with the stock market. But getting back up to speed with real estate. I took him and his wife, Marie Krause, I took him out to lunch. And they just poured. They spent two to 2.5 hours for $20, the cost of 2 barbecues. They just shared and shared. They ended up, after our meeting, we went back home. They emailed me forms and paperwork and documents, their lending documents and forms and applications, all kinds of stuff. They just poured into me. And in fact, this was 5-6 years ago, and we still stay in touch regularly. We texted each other just yesterday, as a matter of fact. We see each other all the time at the meetups. So still close, still in touch. We've done some deals together since then, as a matter of fact. But so I thought this has to be the way I go. I went a month or two later. I went to another regular monthly meetup, and this was the transformational moment. There was a speaker there at this meetup here in Richmond named Dorsey Bodiford Cooney. There's a lot of spelling going on there, but Dorsey Cooney, Dykes Bodiford is her father. There may be someone out there who's heard of Dykes Bodiford, an esteemed real estate investor for probably 40 years. He passed away just last year, I think. An esteemed investor for 40 some years. He was one of the men in real estate. Well, this was his daughter, and she was here in Richmond to speak about lending money. And she had a very specific technique she uses. It isn't just regular lending money. It was called wrap lending. And she spoke about it for about 40 minutes that night. And that night, when she showed examples of how you can have a little bit of money and use leveraging, position that money in such a way that the returns are leveraged, that the returns are multiplied beyond what normally, you take a little bit of something and put it in a position where the results will be massive. And that's what she was explaining to me. And then right then and there, that night, I thought, this was the answer to my prayers. This was divine. This has to be divine. There are so many examples of divine intervention. This has to be one, because Dorsey Cooney lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She's still there, still doing wrap loans, still very successful. She was in Richmond, Virginia, not at a conference, not at some big event. It was at a monthly real estate investor meetup, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if Dorsey Cooney has been in Virginia before then. I don't know if she's been back to Virginia since then. I haven't seen or heard of her. But she was there that night. And I was there that night. And there were probably 50, 60 people in the room that night. And I don't know that any of the rest of them ever did any wrap loans. But I saw something that was possible for me to do.
Chop.
And so that's how I started getting into...
Quick question. So you spent several years trying, like it sounds like you were, I don't know how to say, like a serial trier. Like you would try and take shots at different businesses and stuff. What do you think? Because you're going to carry the story on, because I want to hear all about wrap lending and stuff. But what do you think, or was there anything different about that particular moment? Because I feel like, for you to have tried so many different attempts at entrepreneurship and different businesses, consulting and other things you tried, you've probably had similar moments where light bulbs go off like, oh, I'm going all into that. Was there anything unique and different about this particular moment where you believe like, okay, this is different, this feels different, and I can actually see a vision with it compared to where I maybe didn't before?
Yes, absolutely. And it wasn't just a few years, it was a few decades over the time that I had done this, strike one, strike two, strike three, so to speak. My idea, I knew the power of working with other people. Well, we refer to it as networking. I don't like the word networking. Now I use the word connecting. Back then, I used the word networking. The reason I don't like the word networking is because that little 4-letter word right in the middle.
Work.
Yeah. I don't like work. Yeah. Which gives you some indication of why all my businesses fail. But this time was different. I had come to realize. Now this is over time with all those seeds I've been planting over time with the reading of the book, reading of all the books and all the greatest mindset book ever written or that ever will be written is the Holy Bible. And I've read that book before and I've studied it for years. I read it for years. And again, the message, it takes a long time to go that last quarter inch, but finally it kind of started sinking in. The difference was this. My definition of networking, in fact, I just wrote this chapter in my book. My definition of networking was finding someone to do something for me. That was my definition of networking. So I met people. I met influential people. I met business owners. I met wealthy people. I put forth an effort to get out there and meet some people. And my intention was for them to do something for me. They had influence. They had money. So put money my way, put influence my way, lift me up somehow, to give me a handout, throw me a bone, that type of selfish, self-centered attitude. Now, I wasn't going out and saying these things to people. Do something for me. If the mindset is there, then the indicators are there. Other people can pick up on, what did we call it back in the 70s, the vibe or something? People can pick up on vibes, on feelings, just the way you handle yourself. It's like, it wasn't sincere.
Yep.
So when you start to get to the point where you're objective, right now, in fact, my elevator pitch, if you will, is I enable real estate investors to make their dreams come true. So my goal is to help as many other people develop their wealth as possible. If there's a return to that, and there is, by the way, I can speak on that. There's a great return on it. It's not, that's not the first thing you go after. In fact, just last night, I taught a session I teach an online Zoom class on ramp lending. And last night was we had the class last night. And one of the things I emphasize is the order in which your mindset order. The first thing you want to see happen is you want your borrower to make a lot of money. If it's not going to be a deal in which the borrower, as a lender, I want the borrower to make a ton of money. If I'm looking at a deal that someone asks for a loan on, a real estate investor asking for a loan on an investment property, when I analyze it, there has to be a lot of it on the back end for them. Yep. The next thing is the person when you have a wrap loan, you have other people coming into the loans with you. That person has to make their money. They have to get the principal back and their interest. They have to make their money. The third entity that will benefit are the families who are going to own that rehabbed home or rent that rehabbed home. They have to benefit from it. It's a new life. It's a new beginning for many of those people. And then last, I profit. So I get what's left over. And when I started really living my life, where this was not just a talk, it's when you walk the talk, not just talk the talk. I've been talking the talk for years. When you walk the walk, it's incredible how your business will change. It's amazing how people will want to do business with you. Your energy level changes, and energy attracts people, or attracted to energy. You go in a room and there's a party and there's some guy sitting off to the side doing nothing. He's not going to have a lot of crowd around him, but the person in the middle who's fun and lively and all attract attention. So those are the types of changes. And this was so different. And of course, Fred is still my mentor. I took him on as a mentor, and Dorsey Butterford Cooney, who did the talk that night. I got her contact information that night at the meeting, and I emailed her because it's like a whole learning thing going on. It wasn't just I heard a thing for 40 minutes and now I'm doing it.
Yeah, now you got to learn how to do it.
Exactly.
Yep.
There was a lot of education that goes on involved, so we're kind of skipping through that.
Mhm.
But that's what got me into real estate investing, and that's what's kept me in real estate investing, and that's what, to me, what's exciting about real estate investing is the opportunities you can present to other people that totally change their lives.
Yeah.
So that, in a big nutshell, I guess, is kind of like where I came from. Of course, it could go on for hours, the story, but how I got it, what took me into real estate investing, and what's led me now. I teach the class because I want to help as many other people if they want to get into that don't have a lot of money. Now, if you have $1 million, it's a lot easier to get into lending.
Right.
If you have $5,000, not so easy.
Yep.
It's possible, but that's how that happened.
Man, I got so this could be a 3-hour podcast. So I'm gonna try to condense my questions down to respect your time. But Chuck, well, I guess I'll start off with you brought up a point that it was a big pivot for me. So I was, for years, I was in the corporate world until 2022 when I left that job to go full time into real estate. And all along the while, I was building up my portfolio that eventually allowed me to make that move. And then we got into lending. But prior to me leaving that job, I was always like, I was anti, you say connecting, but networking. I didn't think I needed to be in the room. I thought I could figure it out all by myself. I thought I could listen to the podcast, read the books, watch YouTube, and figure this out. And because I had, at a very small level relative to folks doing some bigger things, but I had some success in real estate on my own, right? So I convinced myself this is the way to do it. When I left my job and I realized, okay, now we're getting into lending. I've got to build a network and all of that. So I got to go to these events. I had that same mindset you were talking about, was what can I get from these events, right? What am I going to get? How much value can I extract from each event? And it didn't take me long, because naturally that's not who I am. I want to help people, right? That is ingrained in me. It comes from a long line of, genetics that people in my family want to help people, and I'm the same way. So I found myself going to these events not being naturally who I am. It was very transactional. I was having conversations and trying to get out of this conversation to go meet the next person so I could just, right? And it wasn't comfortable to me. So it didn't take long for me to say, no, I'm going to go back to being naturally who I am. I do have some value to offer, and I'm going to start bringing that to these meetings. And what came behind it was exactly what you experienced. When I started approaching it, kind of like, I was thinking of it like a seesaw of balancing, like it's okay to try to extract value, but if I have to earn that value by providing value. So I've got to give as much value and then it'll balance itself out with the value that comes back to me. And when I flipped that switch about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, everything took off for me. And it's a perfect example of what you just illustrated and how you did it. And I think it's a lesson to be learned there, because you mentioned it, and I was probably this person early on, but it is very easy to detect the people there that are very transactional and just there to self-serving, right? You know them, you see them, and it's very easy to detect. Well, I was that person for a while, and I didn't like it, right? And so I appreciate you kind of sharing that part of it, because obviously you now, it's every room you're in. I mean, I feel like every event I go to in the Richmond area, you're there, and you're going around inspiring people. You're taking selfies with everybody. You're doing your thing, and it is 90% value provided from you, and it has blessed you in so many ways, obviously. So I appreciate that mindset shift that you had, because it rubs off on so many other people.
And that can be kind of hard to accept,
Yeah.
because so I'd been in lending, wrap lending, and maybe a couple of years, 3 years, and I've been going to Dealmaker. The first time I went to Dealmaker is Fred Krause, my mentor. The guy who helped me out so much. Early on, 5 years ago, he says, "Sign up for Dealmaker." And I'm going, what is Dealmaker? I'd never heard of Dealmaker before. He said, it's an event. It's a 3-day event. And it's just day side. So I went and signed up for it. Not knowing what in the world was going on, sat there and I just fell in love with it, right? Well, the next year Dealmaker comes along. So I'm there and I fell in love with it. And word got out somehow, I guess. And 3 years later, Jim Ingersoll, who runs Dealmaker, just out of the blue, I've not spoken before. I don't go around to meetings and speaking and stuff. And just out of the blue, he asked me. We were on a van, riding along a van in Nicaragua. And Jim Ingersoll, and we were down there with 5 or 6 other investors. And he asked me, would you speak at Dealmaker? Why? Talk about divine intervention. I could go on and on about that. There's a God, there's a spirit, there's a guidance provided by God in our lives. But anyway, why he asked me, why in Nicaragua in a van? Why not any other time? But he just asked me. He said he had a feeling. And I said, and that was scared me to the idea of speaking in front of 200 people at a real estate conference. What do I know about real estate? I've only been doing it 3 years. And I said yes, because I've learned that if something scares you and it's a positive, powerful thing, you do it. You don't think of an excuse to, well, I don't know, maybe. Immediately I said yes. And I did it. And the result of that, you go along like this. And you go along maybe a little trajectory up and you're doing okay. And then something happens. And then all of a sudden it goes this way.
Hockey stick.
Yes. And I'm living it now. But the whole world shifted in a wonderful, wonderful, positive way. Since then, I've spoken at 4 Dealmaker events, and I've been able to share whatever it is I'm sharing, whatever the Spirit's sharing through me, has been able to share on a number of other occasions. I'm now in the process of writing a book. It's on wrap lending, and it also includes something about my story and the past. In fact, the first chapter in the book is be in the room. I think back, what if I had been too tired? Well, I'll go next month. That night that Fred Krause was the lender. That night that Dorsey Boterford came from Atlanta, Georgia, hadn't been in Virginia before. I don't think she's been back in Virginia since. She was there that one night 5 years ago. What if I decided I'll go next month? I went last month. It's every month. I'll go next month. What if I hadn't have gone that one night? Completely transformed my financial future. So writing a book, I'm teaching the classes. I'm thinking of a second book and now a third book that
I love
kind of on the back burner. It's just all of a sudden, God just pours out.
Yeah, you can't see this probably. I have goosebumps right now because I'm your son's age, right? And so I still, if all goes well, I have a lot of life to live, right? But yeah. I'm just figuring things out as I go every day, but it's inspiring to me. When I started this podcast, we have a marketing team that helps us in our business with social media and stuff, but they asked me to describe in one word what my motivation behind the podcast was, not my business, but just the podcast. And I thought about it. I thought about it for like a week before I said, I got to get back with you on that. And the word was inspire. And like, that's how I choose the guests to come on here. That's how I want to live my life. I still have a lot of inspiration to gain from folks like you, but I want to curate situations that inspire others. And what you're talking about and the energy you have behind it is blowing me away because you said you're 77. Is that correct?
77, just turned 77. So I've been at this real estate business for about almost 6 years.
A lot of people my age, I'm 44, think at 77 it's over. like I'm just going to sail off and, or it's just, counting the days at that point. You are living the best years of your life at 77 years old, or some of the best years of your life at 77. You have a happy, healthy family. You talked about your grandkids and all of that stuff, and all of that energy you're bringing. I mean, Chuck, I've said it before. I've been in these rooms and at these events with you, and you are now you're the Fred Krause of the room. You're the folks that it's funny because now, private lending has really become popular since you got into it. Over the last 5 years, it's really taken off.
Yeah.
So you'll go to an event now, and same thing, the host will go around asking what everybody does. You might see 10 or 15 hands go up as lenders. A lot of those hands, Chuck, are because of you. I know that the connections in the room because they've gotten into wrap lending, and they might be a lender with only 10 grand of their own money out of their IRA or something, but they're a lender and they feel empowered and confident by that title, and they're growing as a side hustle or as a main business, they're growing their wealth because of a lot of inspiration, again, inspire, that has come from you. And you're inspiring me just hearing your story because it's just a testament. I mean, we have a wide range of audience, age and experience and stuff like that. But I mean, there's definitely folks that are my age or older or get, your age that are going to listen and find some inspiration here. Maybe they think there's nowhere to turn and, and it might not be in real estate. It might be in something else, but there is something to do. You just got to welcome it in. And if you want to care to elaborate any more on that, feel free, but I'm just so fired up hearing your story right now.
It's open in your mind and letting your brain just go and explore, because over that first 3 or 4 years or so, I was in real estate and kind of figuring things out, not just lending money, figuring all that out for sure. Also figuring this out, figuring me out and who I am and what I'm about, and really kind of defining myself much better than I've ever defined myself in my entire life. I mean, I know you probably do too. We probably all know people who are 30 years old and they're on spiritually, mentally, energetically, they're dead.
Yeah.
So it's not about the age. People say, well, when I'm 65, or I'm going to retire. Retirement, age has nothing to do with retirement. It's can you support your lifestyle, the lifestyle you want to live. I mean, now I'm free, financially. I'm totally free. I paid off my house a few days ago. I was supposed to have my mortgage paid off by age 93.
You paid it off in 12 years, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
In 12, so 17 years, 18 years earlier than it was due, it's paid off. And I finally just went ahead and did it just to be 100% free and clear.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've developed it. I'm going to move my camera just a little bit.
You're fine. All right, let's go.
Show my shirt. I developed, and this has a lot to do with where the book came from this mathematical formula.
For those that are listening, he's wearing a shirt. And now, if you don't mind walking through that formula, I would love it.
Okay. It looks like a mathematical formula, but it's all letters. There aren't any numbers in it. Yeah. First of all, it says OPM. Now, most people know that as other people's money. So OPM minus OPR, other people's plus. Other people's money plus other people's resources, OPR, plus OPKA, other people's knowledge applied. Because people, you've heard the expression, knowledge is power. No, that's the way the world thinks. The way the massive achiever thinks, knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied is power. That's what that little A is about. You have to apply it. Otherwise, I mean, how many people know how to lose weight, but they're way overweight?
Right.
They're not applying the knowledge. Then you have times, OPTA, OPTI, other people's time, multiplied by other people's talents, OPTI, to OPTA, time and other people's time, other people's talents. But notice on the end, there's this minus E. minus your excuses. So excuses takes away from all of this. This is about leveraging. Leveraging, that's what wrap lending is about, is leveraging other people's money. And in turn, they get to leverage my resources and my knowledge, my time, and my talent. And we eliminate excuses. Any excuse takes away, it subtracts from all of this. Now there's a little equal sign on the end. So on the back of my shirt, I won't bother to turn around now. Uh-oh, what happened? I don't know
there.
now.
You're good.
Okay, here I am. Something popped up on my computer. On the back, there's big letters that say massive achievement. So all of this formula equals massive achievement. Doesn't equal a little bit of achievement. When you learn to leverage resources, people's time, talent, knowledge that are all around us. I was one of the corporate things I was working in. The CEO sends out a blast email to all the employees. This was several years ago. Times are tough. This is probably 15 years ago. Times are tough. We have to learn to do more with less. And he sent it out to every employee, down to the frontline worker. Anybody have any ideas, comments, feedback, come back straight to me. You get to talk straight to me, the CEO, right? You respond directly to me. Well, I responded. My response was, and it goes back to mindset. This email may tend, when you tell people, and he went on for 2 or 3 paragraphs, but we have to do more with less. That's what he said. You have to do more with less. And I responded, this can potentially be demoralizing because less what? Less employees? Are you going to fire people? You're going to have layoffs? What are you thinking here? It wasn't explained. And I said, think about this. What if you worded that times are tough, we have to do more with different? Because there are, right now, everyone watching this, us included, we have resources around us we have not tapped into because we don't need them. When I got to the point of desperation, in fact, one of the first meetings I went to, somebody says, right, you have to have a why to be a real estate investor. Write your why on a piece of paper. I wrote one word on my little scrap of paper, and I still have that scrap of paper. Survival. That was my word. It wasn't family. It wasn't big goals and big cars it was survival. But since then, I've gone from survival. Now I'm able to travel the world. I've just got back from a month in Europe. I'm going to go to Ecuador in December. I'll be in the Caribbean in January and February. And I'm planning other trips. I'm planning a trip to Southeast Asia. I want to tour Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand. And it isn't me, it's by God's glory. But the freedom that you have that's out there, that's potentially when you tap into other people's talent, skills, resources, money, knowledge, it's unlimited, absolutely unlimited. But this was the essence of the book. This is kind of was the foundation of the book. And the chapter 1, like I said, was be in the room, get out there. That's where opportunity lies, is in the room. Doesn't necessarily have to be 4 walls. Be where other places where people who are achieving and doing and moving and succeeding, be in those places with those people.
Yeah, man. I've got a lot I'm thinking about. But I like how you've replaced networking with connecting, because that's what it's all about. That's being in the room, connecting with people. It doesn't happen through osmosis. Like just showing up isn't good enough. No. Be there with a focus on introducing yourself. And that's what I love about these events and things we go to, is typically the majority of folks there have this abundance mindset, right? I mentioned earlier, you might see 15 hands go up as lenders. Well, I might be sitting right beside you. We're both raising our hands as lenders. On paper, we're competitors, right? We're trying to go after the same pool of borrowers, but I never once think of it like that. And I know you don't, and I know most of the lenders in that room don't. We're collaborators. We are connecting, and there's one of my greatest mentors, Kelly Garrett, she's the CEO of Rehab Wallet out of Charleston, South Carolina. A huge debt fund doing exactly what we're doing, but 20 times bigger. She held my hand and my business partner's hand and helped us build an exact replica of the company that she has built, a direct competitor to her. And I asked her one day, I said, Kelly, I'm just curious, because we would meet once a week to go through, like she helped us build the foundation of what we're doing now. Why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. You could sail away right now, run your company, be the CEO. It's all being run for you. Why are you spending time on me and Bill to build a company that is going to be in direct competition to you in the same markets and a lot, because we both live in North Carolina as well. And she said, there's enough sunshine for all of us. And I think like you getting some sunshine is not going to take away mine. I love that mentality. And we all approach it the same way. And I just love it's not many throughout life. There's not many niches or industries or whatever you want to call it that have that collaboration. You know, most of the time it's crabs in a bucket, right? Just trying to pull the next. And I just love it. I could go on and on about that. Chuck, real quick, you talked about your elevator pitch earlier. Give me a very quick, high level, I guess, illustration of what wrap lending is. And I don't want you to go through all the details, because I'm going to encourage folks to, I'm going to put information in the show notes of how they can connect with you to be a part of your class and all of that stuff. But a lot of folks are hearing you say wrap lending. They know what lending is. They don't understand the mechanics of wrap lending. So if you could kind of condense a couple minutes as to what it is, that would help, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because the class is 2 hours, and it's just scratching. It's the basics of wrap lending. Right? It's 2 hours. So just in a nutshell, let's say somebody asks me for a $200,000 loan. They want to buy a property to flip it. Well, I only have $30,000. I will still check the loan out and say, yeah, you know, this is if it's a good deal and everything checks out, it passes due diligence, I want to make the loan. I don't have but 30,000. They want 200,000. So I'll find someone else who has some money, who is not a real estate investor. They might not know anything about real estate, but they'd kind of like to invest, especially if you're talking about double and triple the returns they can get from what they're getting in a bank.
Yep.
Or a CD, 2, 3, 4%. Well, I can double that. I can triple that. So they say, yeah, I'll bring my money and put it in. With your $30,000, I'll put in $170,000. They're confident for two reasons. First of all, I'm putting in $30,000, which is a good sum of money. I don't want to lose it. The secondly is they're going to be in first lien position. So they're secured in this deal. And of course, we do our due diligence and our risk mitigation. So we're not, we're only going to lend so much money, et cetera. So there's plenty of equity in the deal. So we're safe. But I take second lien position. So that shows them I have confidence in this deal because you come first. You profit first. If anything goes wrong, you get your money first. But basically, that's kind of what wrap lending is. A couple of people coming in together, usually the wrap lender, the one who does all the work, brings the deal to the table, makes sure all the paperwork is done, the due diligence is done, monitors the progress of the project all through the life cycle of the loan, make sure the payoffs are all straight. You do the work. But you're looking out for the underlying lender, but that person has confidence in you because they're in a good, safe, relatively safe position. There's always risk involved in any kind of investing. But basically, that's in a real quick nutshell, that's kind of what wrap lending is.
Yeah. And then I know you go through this in your class, but in a scenario like that, you as doing all the work. So in most cases, you bring 30,000, you're the connector, you bring the other investor who's more secured in the deal than you, but for doing all the service work, finding the deal, putting it all together, your compensation is going to be like you get the points from that loan. Typically, you're going to get any origination fees, things like that.
Yeah, there's going to be a little arbitrage in the interest, because the person who's coming into the deal with me, let's say I'm going to pay them on their $175,000, I'm going to pay them, let's say 9% interest. Well, that's a whole lot more than they're making at the bank or anywhere else.
Right.
They love it. I'm going to charge the borrower maybe 12 or 13% interest. So there's a little difference there. So I'll make some money off of the arbitrage and the interest, and then yes, I'll get the points.
Yep. So in that example, I mean, you're looking at from your $30,000 investment, you're making that passive investor really good returns, 9%, double, triple what he's making.
Jason, we lost your sound.
Oh, you there?
We lost. There you go. You're back.
Okay.
You lost your sound for a second.
All right. I'm sorry about that.
Because of the way you place the money and leverage the money with other people's, and you're getting interest on the whole loan and paying out part of it to your underlying lender on $30,000 on that deal I just mentioned, without it having a calculator in front of me, it's possible that I could receive in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 in profit off my $30,000, which is a 50% return on my investment. I have had some loans where I've made 70% return. I have some where I've made 30% return. The idea is in wrap lending, the returns on your part of the money is multiplied beyond what it would be if I just lent my money and nothing else.
Yeah. Typically you're making, a lot of times you're making 6 to 9 month loans. So you can cycle that, you can compound it. And then next thing this formula is exactly how you've gone from 5,000 to millionaire. And I mean, and this is what you teach in your class. So
that's the title of my book.
Yeah, exactly. So what I want to encourage everybody is, and Chuck, I'll get all this information from you, but, look down in the show notes or just contact me directly and I'll get you connected with Chuck, because he teaches this in a very nuanced manner, very detailed. And it is Chuck's living proof of it. Knew nothing about this industry. Zero. Went to an event, read a book that his son gave him that kind of triggered some thoughts. And then he starts going to events and connects with the right people. And then boom, you blink your eyes, 5-7 years later, and has compounded that money doing this. And along the way, this is not just Chuck benefiting from some idea. He has impacted, I'd say, hundreds to into thousands of people through doing your speaking, your networking, your connecting, your energy. I mean, I get excited every time I see you in person. You put your arm around me and take a selfie. I'm like, all right, here we go. It's so he's able to compound his money and build a life for himself that you just heard him mention all the traveling he's doing and stuff like that. And Jason, it's not
your sound again.
You got me now? Hold on one second.
There you go. Now you're back. No, gone. The picture got a little fuzzy and the sound went out. Try that.
How about now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think my internet's having issues, but to summarize everything, Chuck, I just want to encourage folks to not just hear this and not do anything with it. If you're looking to make a change or make a difference, Chuck is a great resource, and he's willing, and he's got things to offer, right? You're not bugging him by reaching out and trying to be a part of his network. So
even t-shirts.
Yeah, there you go. So Chuck, with that, I mean, I could go on for hours and hours with you, but do you have any thoughts or anything you want to kind of say to tie a bow around this conversation and before we sign off?
Yeah, one thought that I share all the time with many people: never hold a thought that weakens you. When you catch yourself thinking, diminishing yourself, diminishing your power, diminishing your abilities, your intelligence, your competencies, anything, you switch it and you hold only thoughts that strengthen you. Like, oh, I'm running out of time. That's a weakening thought. So think about, with the time I have remaining, this is what I'm going to accomplish. Boom, boom, boom. That's an empowering thought. Never hold a thought that weakens you. Hold only thoughts that strengthen you.
We have a saying in my house with my kids. They're not allowed to say I can't. I get more mad hearing I can't than I do hearing them say the F word, which they don't obviously say that. But I can't is a forbidden word. I have trained them to replace it with how can I? How can I? And sometimes how can I this is the lesson I'm trying to teach them as they mature. I want them to be independent, but sometimes how can I is like, who can help me with this, right? My son may not be able to get something in the top cabinet of the kitchen. How can I get this instead of I can't get it? Let me call dad to lift me up or something like that. So what you just said, just switching the terminology, couldn't have said it any better. So with that, Chuck, you just don't know how much this last hour has meant to me. It's meant a lot to me. I've gotten to know Stephen, your son, very well. And I can see a lot of the good in him, where it's come from now. Because I've gotten to know you in spurts, but this has been very impactful for me, man. And I know it's going to have a big impact on my audience. So
Thanks, Jason, for the opportunity. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Yep. Well, I look forward to talking to you soon. And with that, we'll wrap up another episode of Burning the Ships. Talk to you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Burning the Ships. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, 608B Capital, helping real estate investors secure fast, reliable funding to fuel their boldest moves. If you're ready to take your investing to the next level, visit 608bcapital.com to learn more. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps us reach more people who are ready to burn the ships and commit fully to their goals. And don't forget to share the episode with someone who needs that extra push to take bold action. I'll leave you with this. Burning the ships isn't just about removing the option to retreat. It's about unlocking the courage to charge forward. No matter the odds, the past is behind you and the future is yours to conquer. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Burning the Ships.